everyone to Apple Insider. Here are our top new features on the 2020 iPad Air 4, starting off with Touch ID. Now, the last generation iPad Air still had a home button, but with this new completely redesigned, Apple for the first time integrated Touch ID directly into the sleep wake button. You can see here the animation as you set this up. Apple, of course, has done a great job here in how they implement this. When you are setting it up and using Touch ID, you need to make sure you cover the entire sensor with your finger. The power button, that sleep wake button, is a little bit larger than it has been in the past due to the integration of Touch ID. And here's another nice little touch. As you're going through the setup process, not only does Apple invite you to add a second finger, but it tells you to rotate your iPad, because that is traditionally what you do with your iPad. You would use your right index finger when it's vertical, and horizontally, you'd use that left index finger. On top of that, because the home button is gone, there's a new way to enter your iPad without having to swipe up. You can see tapping it once unlocks it, but you can rest your finger on that Touch ID sensor to go ahead and open it up. Next on our list is the upgraded camera. What used to be only an 8 megapixel sensor is now an amazing 12 megapixel sensor, very similar to what we see on the iPhones. Now, not just a better sensor, but we're getting other benefits too. For instance, we now have support for 4K video. And not only do we get 4K video, but we get it in some amazing resolutions. A lot of that is driven by the new processor, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yes, you can now record 4K video on your iPad. And even though it may look ridiculous holding your iPad up, it gets used far more than you may imagine. If you dig into settings, go down to camera, you can see all of the resolutions you can now record in, including up to 60 frames per second for 1080p and 60 frames per second for 4K. You also have 30 and 24 frame options as well. Slo-mo 2 was upgraded, so Slo-mo is on here, but before you were very limited to resolutions like 720p. Now it is incredible. You can shoot Slo-mo at 1080p at 240 or 120 frames per second. A great upgrade for Slo-mo on the 2020 iPad. We also have Wi-Fi 6 this year. This is a big thing. Of course, it came to the iPhone, came to iPad Pros, and now it is coming to the iPad Air. You had Wi-Fi 5 before, but of course now we have Wi-Fi 6. It's going to get you a little bit better battery life in there. You're also going to get better connectivity and faster speeds. The speakers were overhauled here, and it's going to depend on what you're listening to or watching, but you're going to hear a nice difference. There are 4 speaker vents around this thing, 2 on either side, good stereo surround sound, but I will note that there are still technically only 2 drivers in there. Each driver is just powering each of those 2 vents on either side. The iPad Pros still have 4 independent speakers, so they're still better on the iPad Pro, but it is definitely an upgrade here on the iPad Air. Sitting between 2 of those speakers is the new USB-C port. What was relegated just to the iPad Pros has now made its way to the iPad Air. USB-C, if you are not enough familiar, has a ton of benefits. So first up, any USB-C cable can now charge your iPad, including the one that came with the box, that works with the MacBook Pros, all of that. But you can also plug in things like USB-C hard drives directly into your iPad, use them within the Files app and third-party apps. You can edit video right off of these external drives, a ton of benefits for storage and other accessories. You can run a USB-C monitor off of here. You can charge your iPhone or Apple Watch using USB-C from your iPad Air. Or if you have other accessories like a camera. So all of my Nikon Z6, Z7 cameras, the new GoPros, the Osmo Pocket up there, or DJI Pocket 2 up there, a ton of accessories that can now connect directly over USB Type-C. Apple does still include a power brick in the iPad Air box, but not only do they include a power brick, but they're including a very capable one. So you see we do have a USB-C cable, great, and then that power brick right above it. Instead of going for a 12 watt or a 15 watt or even the 18 watt that we saw with the iPad Pros, Apple's new including a 20 watt USB-C power brick. That's the same one that's included with the new iPad, the 8th generation iPad. The iPad Pros don't even have this yet. They're still on an 18 watt, so it's pretty awesome that you're getting a faster USB-C power brick bundled in the box with the new iPad Air. Coming in at number 9 on our list is Apple Pencil support. Yes, Apple Pencil support was here in the past, But this new iPad Air has support for the second generation Apple Pencil. It has a ton of benefits, including that new design, doesn't roll around as much, has that nice matte finish, and it magnetically attaches onto the side so you don't lose it, and it is very easy to charge. With iPadOS 14, there are a ton new features for Apple Pencil. Check out our other video on all of those new Apple Pencil features, including Scribble, that are coming to iPadOS. But iPad and Apple Pencil work together better than they ever have in the past. There is so much you can do, and the second generation Pencil is definitely improved over the original one. I love the ability to double tap on the side to switch between tools, so I can go ahead and write something here. Hi, double tap, move on to the eraser and erase that. A ton of cool stuff here with that second gen pencil, and it is now supported. We cannot forget the processor that is running everything, and that is number 10 on the list, the A14 Bionic processor. This is the same one that we're seeing in the new iPhone 12 line, and it is a beast. It is showing some huge gains over the last generation iPad Air, which was only running an A12 processor. But more importantly, the single core scores are faster than the current gen iPad Pros, and the multi-core scores aren't that far below, only about 20%, so those are some amazing scores for the processor. This new iPad Air also comes in several new colors. There's of course silver and space gray, but we have that rose gold, the blue, and the green. The green you've been seeing throughout this video. They are super cool, and we are very excited to try them out. Then we have the updated display. Apple has moved on from that kind of rectangular display to the new Liquid Retina display. These are very similar to what we're seeing on the iPad Pros, but of course it is just a little bit smaller. It's also a bit bigger than what it was for the previous gen iPad Air. It went from a 10.5 to a 10.9 inch display and has a beautiful curved corners. It really looks a lot nicer. Now, we don't have a Magic Keyboard in the size for the iPad Air, but the new iPad Air does include support for the Magic Keyboard as well. So you have the option of the Smart Keyboard Folio and the Magic Keyboard, which includes that additional USB-C port, the hovering display of the iPad, and that glass trackpad. The iPad Air 4 2020 is a huge step up from what we saw in the last generation. This is basically the one that everyone should get, and I want to know what you guys think. So let me know over on Twitter at Andrew_OSU, and if you want to grab one of these for yourself, we've already started compiling the best deals and link them down below in the description.